Okay, let's talk about paints and paper. Um, you saw yesterday I couldn't help myself. I made a really quick post showing what the paper looked like that I painted. And I wanted to explain to you why I'm using the things that I am using. Because I don't think that I have talked about that. Let me see if I can pull apart some of this stuff here. This was just some extra paper to make sure that nothing got messed up. I'm wondering, because I don't think I've talked about it yet, why I am using recycled materials. And I would think that part of that would be, I mean, one could safely assume that I am using recycled materials as some sort of a point regarding the use of objects and things that we have and reusing them and giving them another life as something else, etc. Upcycling. I think that's what it's called. You upcycle it. Reduce, reuse, upcycle, or something like that. However, that is not exactly my only point. In particular, I think that my use of these materials, this is just brown paper. You know, this was a grocery bag, an Aldi grocery bag, and now it's something else. There's something for me personally as an artist. So here we go with the reasons why I'm using these things. As an artist, maybe not just as an artist. For me, this was an object made for another purpose. It's to hold groceries, bring them home. It's a temporary receptacle. I have now turned it into something else. Yeah, I've had to add to it, but I have changed the meaning of the object. It was this. It is now this. And there's something about that I find very intriguing. I think it's my inner surrealistic, Dadaistic person, because I find myself far more Dada than I am surrealistic. Dada in the sense that things are kind of turned on their heads. And to have something that was something else and now is another thing, I think is interesting from the transformative aspect. It's something that when I was teaching, I had students, and this is not something I ever told the students, but I had students that were, and I've met adults like this too, that are, I call them fork people. I had a lesson in which I would show objects to students before a lesson that they were going to be using a lot of recycled things in, and ask them, you know, this is a little recycled thing. What is this? What could it be? And it wasn't this. It was usually I use things like plastic cutlery, etc. Caps and things like that. What is it? What could it be? And I would undoubtedly have children go, it's a fork. Well, what could it be? It's a fork. What could you do with this if you couldn't eat with it? It's a fork. So for me, this isn't a bag. It's something that I painted on. This now is fused with this, and now it's something different. So there's that aspect of it, that I am seeing an already existing object in a new way. So there's that. There is also, I could, if I wanted to, simply go and buy newsprint paper. When I was in art school, for drawing class, I had to use, it was usually at least one, and they usually held between 50 and 100 sheets of just plain newsprint. And when I say plain newsprint, I just mean like this thin paper here. This thin, and it was used in figure drawing classes most of the time because it was quick. You could start things, do things quickly. and go on to the next drawing and go on to the next drawing. And you'd have reams of these things. And I want to say back then they were like $10 a piece. It's really cheap paper and it was huge. However, number one, I don't want that kind of paper. Number two, I don't have money to spend on that kind of paper, nor do I have money to spend on, I could go out and buy some really nice Canson paper, drawing paper that has the same amount of tooth to it and is the same shades of brown, but I can't afford it. So that's not going to happen. But there is something to, like I said, taking something that was something else and then through altering it and adding something else to it, you are changing what it is at this point in time. This is no longer a produce ad. This is something different. I have changed it. And I kind of hemmed and hawed about this because this type of painted paper, which is acrylic on newsprint paper, is a lesson that I got many years ago from an art teacher named Rose, Rosie. And it was the most fabulous lesson for a collage piece. Now, the lesson, as it was for elementary age children, she framed it as a color theory lesson in which, let me see if I'll find another piece of paper in here. I think I've got some in here. Here's a good one. You can see here that I have several different kinds of color. You can see I've added some oranges, I've added some yellows, there's some pink in here. The lesson was working with color theory and doing pages where there are warm colors, pages where there are cool colors, working with tints and shades. So adding white to a color and then getting them all on one page. There were other ones, like this would be a tints, because you can see I've got nothing but light red, which is a rose color, and then even adding more white here. Let's see. And some just experimenting with adding just one color to it. So what she did after this lesson, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, is all of the kids in every class would paint between 4 and 6 of these pieces of paper. They all got kind of added into, like for a class, if you're doing a class level sort of thing, I might have four third grades that are all doing color theory painting lessons. So they've learned to do the mixing and we're working abstractly. And then all of the papers go into, they don't put their names or anything on it. The papers just go into bins of cool colors and warm colors and primary colors, and depending on what I'm going to do with the next part of the lesson, which is collage work. And collage work, two-dimensional collage work, is working with colored papers. For an art teacher, where I was working, I could readily lay my hands on inexpensive paints, both acrylic and tempera, for my students. Paper sometimes got more expensive. Actually, paper got a lot more expensive. So depending on how I was planning out my year, using the newsprint paper, which I could readily get from the school librarians. I always made friends with the janitor and then the school librarian. Janitor, so I knew how to clean things up. School librarian, so we could coordinate with art shows and book readings, and I was kept in newspaper because an art teacher always wants newspaper. Then I would save the papers, tear the papers down. We'd have the color theory lesson, which was part of an overarching group of lesson plans. And then the next lesson, I usually did a lesson that was abstract and color blocked portraiture. And the kids loved it because there's something about this acrylic paint, once it's on the paper, that it's just beautiful to tear and to make into different shapes and to cut, and it's lovely to cut. And I basically did it as an art teacher on, like, my husband and I would joke, I did it on a $1.50. I did it for a very, very low price. It was a lot of bang for very little outlay of costs. And what I found myself the most drawn to, because I had, I was fortunate enough to see my fellow teacher Rosie teach this lesson, and she was teaching how the paint comes together and the mixing, and it allowed students to just kind of be free with their colors, which I really liked. And then once they got the papers back, they were just as intrigued about the fact that it looked like newsprint still, but it wasn't. It's not anymore. It's different. And especially for those kids that are 4th and 5th grade who are starting to get more abstract learning processes going on, or reasoning, more abstract reasoning, they can kind of start piecing some of that together. So for me, the use of these recycled materials is important, not only to use things responsibly, use your objects around you responsibly, but that in this piece that I am creating, that we are changed, we are changeable, we are one thing, and then we are a completely different thing. And it depends on who is looking at us and who is seeing us, who we're responding to, who we're not responding to, who we have in our lives, who we don't have in our lives. That will give these more meaning, because it's never as black and white as this, looking at these ads. Now, I initially thought that I wanted to go and get a newspaper, but then I started looking through some stuff that I had saved, because you know me, I save everything. And I kept coming back to these ads, and I'm not sure if any of you know, part of my jobs when I went to art school, I learned how to be a graphic designer and illustrator. I learned how to do printmaking and bookbinding and all kinds of stuff. And for many years, worked as a graphic designer. Graphic designer and secretary for about 10 years. Those were my two things that were, I think the secretarial work actually fed me more. But my last job working as graphic designer was working in a regional food chain, and I was in the graphics department, and we did the ads. And when I look at these, there's a part of me, and I can see part of myself, because I've done this before. I've gone through and had to go through and make sure I've got the right art that goes with the right. And believe me, you think this stuff looks easy. It's not easy, in that it's not incredibly exciting work, which then means you really need to make sure you're paying attention. This sort of thing might be like the fun stuff that I get to do. So there's a lot of work that goes behind these, and it's something that people really don't notice, but it is a part of who I am as an artist. This is something I've done. I know how to do it. And the thing is, now I'm using this here to do something else with, which is, these are going to be flowers. And I'm kind of trying to draw the through line through all of this for this piece. That things are a remix, and that we do go back and we change, and we were this one thing and now we are another thing, and that will continue to happen as we are fortunate enough to grow older, and how we look at the world around us through those lenses of, we were this and we are now that. Yeah, you think the only things that have been going through my head are things about hinges and sequences. But no, this has been going through my head a lot too. So, yeah. So these are the papers, and I'm going to be using these. I think I got it to 67 or something, and then when I ran, we ran some errands today. We had to go to the library, and we stopped at the dollar store because a lot of my supplies come from the dollar store. And I had been lamenting as I went to sleep that I didn't have anything that was fuchsia. And God bless them, at our dollar store, someone had come through and cleaned up several of the aisles. One of them had all the craft and the art supply stuff in it, and they restocked all of the paint. And I picked up some white in this same brand because I thought maybe I wanted to do daisies. It'll take 2 coats. And basically I'm just knocking down some of this stuff that's a little, you can still see it. You can still see it, but it's not all there. I mean, like, you know, screaming at you. It's different. So I'm going to make a couple of these today, and then hopefully by tomorrow I will have wrapped some of the mural pieces because they're going to need to sit under weight, because you can see here, even though I had these under weights all night long, they're still a little bumpy, and I'm really going to have to saturate this back with glue, because part of me is tempted to just glue the front pieces on to the board and then put them under weights, and then do the other wrapping around the board at a later time, which I think I might do, because I think that will help adhere things to where it needs to go. So, man, some of these videos where I'm just sitting here talking are starting to get a little long. So I'm going to cut this one a little short. Not a little short, a little longer. And I'll see you in the next video.